BMW or not, on this episode of Eat, Sleep, Drive, we're going to take the 2021 Toyota Supra on a day of canyon carving, and we're going to find out, regardless of the badge, if it's any good or not. Hello everyone, my name is Kurt and you're watching another episode of Eat, Sleep, Drive. Super stoked on this one. This is my first one out in California, guys. I moved out to California to make more of these videos. I'm in the canyons of Angeles Forest and it's gonna be a lovely day in the 2021 Toyota Supra. Now this week we're gonna focus on the fun factor, the speed factor, and the performance factor of this car. Next week, I'm gonna make another video and we're gonna talk more about what this car is like to live with, what it's like to drive on a daily basis and things of that nature. So make sure you subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss that one next week. But this time, we're gonna have some fun. They made some revisions for 2021. They upped the power quite significantly, 50 horsepower. Not that this car really needed that much more horsepower, but 382 horsepower now. This thing's a beast. They also modified the suspension a little bit because there were some complaints about this car at the limit. So we're gonna see how those changes affect the car. Let's take it for a spin. Well, some pops from the exhaust when you let off throttle are nice. Yeah, thrust. So the thing that dominates this whole experience, and that really is probably the best part of this car, is this engine. It's fast. The torque that this engine outputs is pretty much insane. It has thrust from really low RPM to high RPM, and that's something that you don't always get with a turbocharged engine. A lot of them, especially lately, have been tuned to give you all that torque down low, and it makes it feel real fast, but when you get higher into the RPM range, it kind of falls on its face. We're gonna drop down a gear here, and we're gonna do it again. Pulls all the way. Pulls all the way to red line. Now, unfortunately, the red line is kind of low. 7,000 RPM, but I love a good revvy engine. And when you see that this thing starts to get mad at you at about 6,500 RPM and wants you to shift, it's a little bit of a letdown. The other thing that's a little bit of a letdown is the sound. It sounds fine, but it's super synthetic. And I don't want to get into the whole, like, yes, the sound is coming through the speakers. I don't like it. I'm sure a lot of people don't, but maybe a lot of people don't care. They just care what it sounds like. It's a very, like, warm, hummy sound, which is fine, but it's very synthetic. There's not a lot of exhaust noise. You do get some pops when you let off the throttle, but there is some turbo noises, which I very much welcome and are very much needed in a Toyota Supra. Come on, a Supra has to be a straight six, and it has to make turbo noises and have a turbo and be tunable. And that's what this is. I mean, I understand that this is a BMW thing, and people are mad about that. It's not a pure Toyota product, but if we're judging it objectively, it's pretty good. So the engine is the best part. The gearbox is pretty good. It's a regular torque converted automatic. So when I say that, I mean it's not a dual clutch like you see in a lot of cars these days, or a lot of sports cars. That said, it's still really quick to shift for being a torque converted automatic. And the other nice part that you get from a traditional automatic is the fact that it has very good manners at low speed. Some dual clutches at low speeds are kind of jerky. They get in between gears. It's kind of like lurches back and forward during traffic, and it's not that smooth. But you don't get that at all with this transmission because it has a torque converter, and it smooths everything out. So that's great. The transmission, despite the fact that it's not a manual, of course, yes, I would like a manual. We don't need to get into that. But for it being an automatic, regardless, it's good. It's really good. And 8 gears, I got pretty good fuel economy on the way here. So I can't really complain too much about that. Suspension. Also good for the street. Haven't driven it on the track. It does have quite a bit of body motion though. So I worry about that on the track at the absolute limit. Of course, we're not getting anywhere near close to the limit on these public roads. But when I say body motion, I mean it leans a lot. It kind of heaves a lot around. Like if you've ever driven an ND Miata, it kind of feels like that in some regard. Like it doesn't feel exactly like a Miata because reasons, but as far as like the way the Miata moves about, and a lot of people when they get those cars, they put sway bars on them to kind of dial that out because it's a little too lofty. But this car kind of does that. And you know what I notice it most? I'm gonna slow down here and show you guys, demonstrate. Watch what happens to the front of this car when I launch this thing. It's like, it picks up like crazy. I mean, most sports cars these days, they've dialed that out. There's just not this like crazy lift on power. Now, the funny part is when you brake, it doesn't dive too much. But man, I tell you what, when you get on throttle, especially at low speeds with this thing, really any speed, because of this torque, it really lifts the front of the car off the ground. We can slow down here now that we're behind the CR-V, and I want to talk about some of the downsides, because one of the things that people ask me about is the wind buffeting. Is it still present in the 2021 model? Can you guys feel that? I don't know if it translates in the audio. If it does, you're going to hate me because that probably was horrible, but there's this crazy pulsating anything over 40 miles an hour. It's mind-boggling that a company could put out a car where you can't put the windows down, especially a sports car. It's just crazy, and it's very annoying. And honestly, like if I was in the market for one of these, it might be a deal breaker for me. It's a bummer in a sports car when you don't. Oh, thank you, CR-V. In a sports car that you can't put the windows down, come on, man. Especially now that I'm in Southern California, that's all I want to do. So I literally can't drive this car with the windows down. Very frustrating. These seats are also not my favorite things in the world. Not very comfortable, at least for me. I haven't heard too many people complain about them, like other car reviewers. This car is so fast. But for me, it's not that they're too wide or too narrow. It's the shape of them in the back. And like, as much as you can adjust them and adjust the lumbar, I just can't get it right. It just is not comfortable to me. And this pointed forward headrest that you can't adjust, can't move up and down, it hits me right in the back of the head, right at the apex of this thing. And it's crazy uncomfortable to me. Like it just like cranes my neck forward, and I understand that they do that for like safety reasons and stuff like that if you're in an accident. But frankly, I'd rather die than have to sit in the seat for any long period of time. It's super annoying, and please, Toyota, do something about it. I don't know if it's just me. I guess I'm just saying, if you're looking at one of these, make sure that you go to the dealership and sit in one and drive one. Don't buy it sight unseen, because if you are like me and you don't fit in these seats, you're gonna have a bad time. I'm 6'1", 165, by the way, so that just gives you an idea of the fitment of the seat. So, coming to a stop here. Transmission's good. Does what you want it to do. What we didn't talk too much about really overwhelms the rears there quite a bit is the brakes. We didn't talk too much about the brakes. The brakes are pretty good, but they're not great. They have a lot of initial bite, especially around town. They're really grabby. But when I get deeper into this pedal, I wish it did more. I really wish it did more. It just doesn't give me that much confidence, and I worry about this car on the track. Like here in the canyons where I'm not too heavy on the brakes, you know, I'm kind of just going with the flow here. It's not a problem, but they could be stronger. The other thing that is related to the suspension, of course, is the steering. And frankly, that's pretty numb. You'll see me in these turns adjusting the wheel quite a bit. See me kind of moving that wheel around. I'm trying to feel anything. I'm trying to feel the traction of the front tires. I'm trying to feel out the grip, and it's just not there. And that's a big time bummer. But it's kind of par for the course with BMW in most of their products. The M2 is pretty good. Ooh, Black Squirrel, he survived. The M2 steering is pretty good. Not sure why they couldn't put that programming in here. Maybe it's a Toyota thing. You know, maybe they got their hands on the tuning and decided they're going to do something different. But it's not great for a pure sports car. So I'm kind of being hard on the car, but it's just when you name something a Supra, I don't want to get too much into this, but when you name something a Supra, it has expectations. Granted, the old one wasn't the best handling machine, and this thing handles really well. Like I said, great street car, really comfortable. Love the comfort the suspension offers. You have a sport mode, you have a normal mode, and you have adaptive dampers. And that's something that you can't say in things like the M2. The M2 is very firm. The M2 comp is very firm. And this is not. This is great for the street. And we're gonna get more into it next week, but it really makes it more of a competent daily driver and fun-ish weekend car, as opposed to just like a fun weekend car. It doesn't give me that many thrills to be strictly a weekend car. But overall, great product from Toyota. It could be really great if they did some minor things. Improve the steering, improve these seats, fix the wind buffeting. Just, you know, these are minor tweaks. The engine is good, the gearbox is good. Like the basic underpinnings here are really good. And in order to make it great, they just need to do some more fine tuning. And I think Toyota will. They've already made a bunch of changes for 2021. And like my ISF, they just kept improving it and kept improving it every year. And it got to be really great by the time it was done. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Being that this was the first one out here in the canyons in LA, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I've thoroughly enjoyed you guys coming along for the ride. Make sure you tune in next week for the more driving this around town, what's it like to live with, if you're interested in buying one and you want to know that aspect. And if you want to follow me in between episodes, Eat, Sleep, Drive TV on Instagram. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time. See ya. Good timing with the deer. We were going slow. See ya, Bambi.